It did not even affect Nigeria. Why?
What was the result?
Hold on a minute. When you spoke,
what was the result?
When you spoke, I allowed you. You must be disciplined.
Yes, go ahead.
When the people that were managing the Nigerian economy at that time, they figured out a way to immune the Nigerian system from the global issues, and we were getting growth there. That's number one. Number two, we've had situations in the past where the prices of oil had gone down before, and it was incidentally under the PDP as well during Obasanjo's second term. It was not like, you see, what they are doing with themselves and their government is that they desired to take over power without planning for the responsibility that is required. Let me shock you. That global oil prices are down does not mean that the Nigerian economy should collapse. We have the internal resilience within our own banking system, within our manufacturing system, within our great players in the world economy to be able to drive things. What has been the problem of this government? So that we can begin to...
You haven't seen anything. I'm asking, no, so that you can just continue on that. Because one of the things he said from day one, I'm giving you a quote from the president, he said, we purposely set out to correct our condition to change Nigeria. Yes. So it would seem as if there were huge problems before he came.
Sorry, forgive me. You see, first of all, you have to know that the responsibility of government in the modern time is not to get directly involved in business. It's just to provide the enabling environment for private sector people to drive it. What are we saying? The reasons why Nigeria is having so much problem is because their micro policies and their fiscal policies are not in sync.
Like which one?
I will give you some. I will give you some. You cannot run a dichotomy of foreign exchange with the one at the federal, at the CBN coming as low as 190 something, and the one in the black market running at over 300, and you leave it like that for a very long time. That's number one. Number two, you cannot make careless, unguarded statements within the economy of the country and expect that it will not evaporate on the exchange rate.
Are you saying they can control the black market?
They can't. You calm down.
Mr. Economist, tell us how. That's why we're here.
I could leave him to have the floor.
Just hang on.
I can tell you how they could have controlled. Thank you very much. We have never had a time in this country where the CBN has ever been able to provide all this foreign exchange that the Nigerian private sector needed. What the Nigerian private sector had done is that to go and source for the remaining in the black market. The question you now ask is that why is it that over those periods the rate was not this high? It's simple. The cabal that they are running is profiting from rent seeking. And because they are profiting, because they are profiting from rent seeking, the gap between it is too much. And when they were advised to do a marginal devaluation so that the thing can be, they resisted until it was almost getting a bit late.
If I may come in here.
I mean,
he said something that when they came in, they made promises which they've not been able to keep because the last administration practically looted the treasury.
No, they
left nothing for them. That's what he said. I mean, the president in his statement said, we met a government, an economy that was almost dead.
Forgive me. Because you see, talk is cheap. There are benchmarks to measure how an economy is doing. The foreign direct investment that came into Nigeria over our years, this is the first time we're having a negative GDP growth in the history of this country. It's there, budgeted has the statistics. Look, what has happened to them is that they desired an assignment that they don't know how to run. Let me give you one thing that will shock you further.
He has to come in soon, though. We'll just wrap up.
Yeah, he said they inherited an empty treasury. Where the hell did they find the money to do bailout for states if the treasury was that empty? What did they do with the almost something billion external reserve that we gave them? Was there any imagination that they were going to come into government and they were not going to need to do some structural adjustment? What did they do with all the money they got from TSA, the single treasury account? What did they do with all the money of the Look, as at the time he was supposed to come and talk to us today, he had promised, the president had promised continuously that he was going to tell us the figures that came out from all the season of assets and all the money. What did he tell us again? He turned us back again to another hearing to chasing the thing about.
Mr. Shomi,
I have the floor now.
Before we bring you in, Mr. Shomi, are you saying that the treasury was not looted?
Thank you.
We have never...
Are you saying that the treasury was
not looted? Allow him to answer.
Well, I can also ask you a question.
I will ask you when we get there. We are not saying that they won't have issues that they may find that suggest that some people have corruptly enriched themselves.
Thank you.
But that is not totality of what the Nigerian nation runs on.
All right, let him come. Dr. Ketchin, go ahead.
Let me just tell you this. If Buhari has not come into this administration or has not been the head of this administration, would it have been conceivable for anybody anywhere in this world to believe that 2.1 billion naira, $2.1 billion was set aside to fight Boko Haram? And till date, we have not seen any trace of any of such money spent in fighting insurgency. Where was the 2.1 billion naira coming from?
I can tell you where it is.
I'm coming. If Buhari has not been in power and has not taken all the travel he has taken, would it have been possible for us to know today, like he's trying to expose everybody, that so much of our money have been stamped out of this country? And he was talking about the man not even going to give us figures. He had already said in some earlier statements that by the time he concludes the repatriation of funds that have been stolen out of this country, we'll be having something in the neighborhood of about 50 to 55% of what the annual budget of Nigeria is.
Maybe we should go to this. Could you tell us what do you think that this government has successfully achieved based on what you promised so far?
Well, I can take them one by one. And whenever I explain, I want to explain them in relative terms. I want to explain them in the context of the circumstance we found ourselves, and in the context of the huge, what I may call, conspiracies and sabotage that we inherited. One, we promised security. Security at a point in time when we're making the promises has to do with the insurgents within the Northeast. Before this government came into power, 14 local governments within the Northeast, and that is not controvertible. 14 local governments in the Northeast were not under the sovereignty of Nigeria.
At what point?
Before the government came in. Just about before the government came in. We are not under the sovereignty of Nigeria. We have flags of Boko Haram hoisted in different parts of the country. There was a makeshift cosmetic dressing just before the election to show that Nigeria Army had recovered some of these locations. But you discover that immediately after the election that wasn't the case. That they were actually in charge of 14 local governments. That is history today in Nigeria. Total history today. We have recovered our sovereignty and our territorial integrity is now entered. Okay, that is one.
That's first point. Let me react to that so you don't...
You see, when people...
No, if you want me to conclude, let me conclude. If you cut me short because you wanted to react.
No,
so if you want me to react, go ahead and make your point so that I can continue.
Are you continuing on that same platform on security?
Well, if I have all the time, I will give you more and more issues.
We'll take it in bits.
Okay.
We'll take it in bits.
Fine. Can I take the other one?
The security.
Is this still on security?
Okay. All right.
Let's see. You see, when they were trying to become a party in the business of wanting to form government, they made a lot of noise about 17 local government, 20 local government, 34 local government not being under the control of the country. They were alluding to areas that Boko Haram was operating in. The curious question that we've always been asking ourselves is that if truly Nigeria was not in control of those 14 local governments that they are brandishing, well, how and why were we able to generate election results from those local governments? The truth of the matter is that nobody in his right senses believes this hogwash that the country was not in, people were not in charge of. There were insurgents issues. And it had to do with a misplaced priority on what people interpret to mean their desire to Islamitize Nigeria. And it was a protracted, long-drawn war where we bought weapons and gave weapons to people and we recovered. Then ask him on the security.
You bought weapons?
As there,
did you say you bought weapons?
Please, we did. Did
you say you bought weapons?
We did. We bought weapons for the first set of weapons that the Nigerian Army used to combat and go to the field were weapons procured by the PDP administration of General Goodluck. Anyway, besides that, when you say you are providing security for a nation, you can never